Welcome back to Robin Reviews. Every few videos, I like to throw more Rubik's products out because out there, I mean, show them to you. You know that I like them, and so today I picked two. One of them is very hard, but doesn't look as hard, and the other one is the opposite. It looks harder, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. And so the first one I'll show you is this one. Just one sec. I'm going to just adjust the camera. I'm going to ask you if in the comments so far, or you can just answer this to yourself. You don't have to comment. Do you think this is the hard one or the easy one? Sorry, I shouldn't call it easy. But I think it looks easier than it is. So no, this one is actually very hard. This a few videos ago, I did a review of this was a while ago. I shouldn't say a few. The Perplexus Epic. It was that the big round labyrinth with the ball bearing, and has like 125 different levels you have to run it through. And so this is actually a Rubik's Perplexus, and so it's exactly like the name suggests. And so what this does, I gotta find out where the start is. I haven't actually finished it myself, and so I'll try and get a good view here. So in the corner here is start. Now with any Perplexus product, everything has numbers, and so you know that you're basically going through a numbers labyrinth. You're starting with 1, and so here there's an arrow, and then you go to 1. The problem is with this one is 1 will lead to this square here. But before it gets there, we need to make sure that the second level of the labyrinth is ready. And so I don't even know where number 2 is. I can't even find it. There it is. So number 2 is here in blue. And so what you have to do before you even, think about solving it is you have to move this around until it's like that. Because then number 1 goes straight in and straight down that path into number 2. See it there? And then again, same thing. You get to 3, 4, 5, 6, and you already have 7 there, which then turns down to 8, 9, and then again here you run into the problem of you have to get to number 10. So I'm not actually going to solve all this because I haven't actually yet solved it myself in its entirety. I mean, it's genius what they did is because they turned the Perplexus, which is already hard on its own, which is, again, Perplexus, you have to move the little ball bearing around, but they made it so that the labyrinth is also a Rubik's Cube. The colors don't really matter. You just have to make sure that you continually are moving the ball bearing through the different levels, but also making sure that when you get through the different levels of the ball bearing that the corresponding square and the numbers with it line up. The hardest thing about this isn't necessarily figuring out where it is. It's steady hands, because like the Perplexus Epic and other Perplexus products, the ball is very easily dropped. So it's a bit of a challenge. My advice to anyone who might want to solve this is try and get a good understanding of where the levels are. When I first got this, I read a review of someone who literally wrote out every single step, and so that he knew what had to be where. It's a little harder because there's a blue, a red, a green, and orange, but then 2 white and 2 yellow, and so it's not quite as easy as just marking down, blue, orange, and all those things, but you can have it so you can mark it out, or you can just have fun looking. The danger when you look, I will advise, if you're like, no, I want a bit of a challenge, I'm not going to write it out, is, make sure you know where the ball is and what, how you want to be holding it, because if you have to turn it over to look, you got to be very careful. So I would, again, it might sound silly, but I would actually, if you're doing that, I would lift it and look underneath and just make sure that you know how the ball bearing can't fall. I'll give you one example. So here, inside here, if this was your top side there, I'm talking about this corner right here. If your ball bearing's sitting in there, that's fine. It's actually well protected. But again, there you wouldn't want to turn it upside down. So this is extremely hard. I haven't done it. I wouldn't even try to solve this on camera until I was sure I knew what I was doing. But if you want a challenge, or if you have parents out there, if you have like kids who love challenging puzzles and getting their brains to work, I would highly suggest this. The other one looks harder than it is. That is the Rubik's mirror cube. This one I will actually attempt to solve because I think that it is awesome. The thing that's so trippy about this one is it doesn't look like anything, and yet it is still a Rubik's cube. When you have this solved, it is a cube. There's two tricky things to this one. So the first tricky thing to this is that there's no colors. So the Rubik's Cube, the easiest way to see what you're doing, or know what you're doing, or know what steps are next, is to know the colors. Because, the first step is you want to, say, put all of the yellows on one side. That's the first step of any Rubik's Cube. You don't have this here. The second tricky thing is each side, instead of colors, they are sizes, thickness. But it's actually it's trippy and tricky, but it also helps. So for purposes today, I actually solved one side. And this is what I would suggest anyone do if you ever buy the Rubik's Mirror Cube. You don't have to, but I always will try it. We'll solve the thin part first. So you see how each one has there's different thicknesses. This is the thinnest one, and so it's often easier to tell them apart. Like these two here would not go on the same level. They're actually slightly different thicknesses, whereas it's a little bit easier to tell this top one apart. And so you would start by making one whole side, and it's one whole side, not by looking at it like this, even though that does help. But you got to make sure that all the thicknesses are the same. And so I'm going to walk us through it, and hopefully I do it properly, because otherwise, well, that's not going to help. So once you do the first level, like you would do at a normal Rubik's Cube, after you do that first layer, is you want to turn it so that you get that middle one on each side in the right. So here, it's not about color, but it's about shape. So it's about making sure it lines up. So it's not there, because you can see that it doesn't line up. It's there. So if you notice now, if you touch it, those two are the same, and these are the same, and these are the... So as you can see, those are right. As with a normal Rubik's Cube, if you know or can solve those, the next step is making sure that the second layer is solved. And so it's actually, like for example, this one here, you actually need to go here. And so like a normal Rubik's Cube, there is an algorithm which will put it there. So see, it's there now. Now, this one is also a little trickier to turn, because you have to make sure it's lined up properly, otherwise it will not turn. I recently also bought the Duncan Speed Cube, which is a lot easier to turn, and this one is one of the hardest ones to turn, and it's because of all the different shapes. And so you have to find what the next one is that you want to turn, and this is a lot of turning and repositioning to get the ones that you need to move. It's very hard to tell, especially in the case, like I mentioned earlier, when you have two of the pieces that have very similar thickness, to see which one it is. But there you see, we've done it again. I purposely, in my videos, I haven't outlined what the algorithms are for these, and that is because I don't love the way that they're explained in some of the videos. Like people will say that, like up inverted, left, right. I rather look at the actual guides on the Rubik's Cube's website, and so that's what I would do. Again, this is the same one, so if you know the algorithms of the other one, like if you know the algorithm to get this square to here, then you can do it on the mirror cube as well. You just, again, have to just suspend the part of yourself where you're looking at as colors. And so there, as I've been talking, the first two layers, are done on all sides. On a colored Rubik's Cube, you would look at the top and you would look for it either has just the one color is right, or there's a inverted L, these three, or there's a line, or there's a full cross. So here's the line. The line, which is the straight line across, is the second last parity that you can have. And so if you had like the cross is the last one and the line across is the second last one to get there, and so it's a lot easier. The algorithm, though, to get from, even if you only have the center as the one color, the algorithm's the same. The only thing that changes is how many times you have to do the algorithm to finish. Now we look for how many sides are correct. There will always be at least two, and by sides I mean when you get to this piece, the piece that goes on top there. So the two will either be side by side, which they are here. See those two in the right place, or they'll be across from each other. And see, because you can see there, these two, that one here is actually, my note can see there, it's indented, and this one is sticking out. So they're not right, and so when you get to that, you put the ones that are correct on the right and the back. And again, there is algorithms that tells you how to turn it. I turned it too early on that one. And so there's different algorithms that tells you how you want to be turning it. Then this is what I find actually the trickiest step about this one, is you have to get all of the right squares into the right spots, and it's actually a little difficult to know when you've done that, because again the thicknesses are different, and so you have to kind of look at it and understand. And so these aren't in the right spot, and so you do there's an algorithm you can do which shuffles them around, except for it keeps one in the right spot. And now I believe we're good to go. And so what you do, again, there's another algorithm that you have to do, and all this algorithm does is it rotates the one corner piece up and down until it is in the right spot and facing the right way, which this one is now. And you move this one over and you move to the next one, and it's literally just a repetitive thing. And that's why I was talking to my parents this week. They were visiting, and they were saying like they couldn't understand how a Rubik's Cube is done, and I said, well, it's just math. All it is knowing algorithms and memorizing algorithms. But the problem is, now that there's so many different Rubik's Cubes, is there's so many different things to memorize. Like when it's just one, that's easy. You only got like 5 or 6 things to memorize. But then when there's more, you have even more to memorize. And then when you turn it, it's done. And so that's the mirror cube when it is together. So if you look, you got to look kind of like from a side profile, as you can see like the thickness of this layer versus the thickness of these ones. And that's why, if you look, the actual thinnest is that top one, and that's why I often start with that, is because it is as you can see now, pretty clearly, it is the easiest. This one's closer, but this one is the easiest to identify, and so that is the mirror cube. I hope you guys like it. Try it out again if you're a parent, or if you're even adults. So, if you like a good challenge, you like a good workout for the mind, these are great. In the great conversation pieces too, I have this in my office, and I usually have it unsolved, and so people look at it and they don't really know what it is, and then when you show them it's a cube again, it is a fun conversation piece. So that's the mirror cube. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe. Don't forget to find the 100 subscriber giveaway I'm doing for the Funko Atom Smasher from Black Adam. Leave your handle in that video in the comments, and one of my lucky subscribers, preferably who lives in North America at this time, until we get bigger, will win that Funko. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.